All right, show you guys the hits real quick. 2 alpha. 2 alpha. 2 alpha. And then that little guy, little popper at about, I don't know, 20 yards-ish. And then that piece of steel. And then for those of you wondering, some of you guys ask about this stuff all the time. First shot was the 86, the 18 split. Is a kind of a close target. 70 split to that little small popper at 20, and then a 65 split to that steel, and then these were all in the 30s. So I want to talk to you guys about occluding the dot. So shot that with an occluded dot. All right, what is the big what is the big deal, excuse me, with an occluded dot? So check it out. The occluded dot forces you to be target focused. Okay, so if I stare at the dot, I can no longer see the target, right? I can no longer pick a specific spot to aim. Okay, and you might be thinking, why do I need to do that, right? You need to see small. You need to be able to see small and put your sights or your dot on a very specific spot if you want to be fast and accurate, right? I think what happens a lot of the time, especially with the dot, since it's so much information, people typically watch the dot bounce up and down, and you might be thinking like, you know, so what, right? But here's the problem. If you say I'm going to send 2 shots and I watch the dot bounce up and down, the first one will 100% be in the center, and then I'll watch the dot go high and then send the next one high, okay? And if I don't send the next one high, typically what I see people do is they drive it down low because they're watching the dot lift, and then they're trying to drive it back down, and they end up over muscling the gun. So what I would propose you guys to do is to pick a very, very specific small spot to lock your vision on every single target, and don't allow the dot to catch your vision. So lock your vision on a very specific spot and don't allow the dot to catch your attention like that and try to drive it back down. So it never typically works out. Even just doing that with my finger, right? If I look at my finger and I'm trying to drive it back down to where it came from, I can no longer do that because I'm no longer picking a very specific spot to drive it to, right? So being target focused, to me, it's a pretty big deal and something that I've been working on quite a bit. And it's all about getting your vision out in front of the gun, right? Get your vision out in front of the gun, especially on transitions. If you can get your vision out in front of the gun, you guys are going to be pretty damn surprised at, like, number one, how fast your transitions are going to be, and number two, like, without even trying to be fast, they're going to be fast. And it's a really careful way to shoot as well. Okay, so like before, I was pretty fast on transitions, but I would put a lot of muscle into it. And what I had found is, like, yeah, I mean, I could transition fast, but I would typically drag on a Charlie or even sometimes a Delta, right? Because I'm not picking a specific spot, and I would be pushing so hard to get to that next target that I was prioritizing muscle and speed over vision, right? And to me, that's the wrong way to go about it. So occluding the dot helps all of that stuff. Go ahead and occlude your dot, see what it looks like. I'll be honest with you guys, the first time I occluded my dot, I 100% like hated it. And I think it's because I was so used to watching that dot bounce up and down that I just was not looking at the target at all. But as soon as you go ahead and start looking at the target and picking very specific spots, it's pretty wild how, like, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I can 100% see the dot exactly where I'm looking every single time. And I no longer have to put muscle to, number one, drive the gun back down, and number two, into my transition. I just transition with my eyes, put my eyes there, and the dot is going to follow. So pretty freaking cool. Typically what I do with occluding the dot, like, I'll put it on just to check and make sure that my vision is out in front of the gun. And then I'll take it off, right? So for me, it's just a way to check and make sure that my vision is doing what it should be doing. And again, I'm not saying don't look at the dot. Don't be aware of where the dot is. You 100% have to be aware of where the dot is, but don't focus that hard. Don't stare at the dot specifically. Stare at a very specific spot, superimpose the dot in the background, and I think you guys would be a lot better off. Nick with Velox Training Group. Go check it out.